came down, we were so relaxed. It was amazing.
Wait. Take me back to this. So there's a time.
When I was in high school, okay, in the 1980s, I was a freshman in 1981. And back then, we were terrified of war with Russia. It was a terrifying fear of a nuclear war with the Soviet Union.
And break this down to me. So it's like, is it you're watching the news and is there like fear mongering? Do you believe it? Does it feel less propagandist?
100% there was fear mongering. Look, it's always been, if it bleeds, it leads in the news. Yeah. You know, we talk about how bad the news is today, but the reality is, like 5 o'clock news, when you get home from work, it was always the worst shit that happened. Double homicide in Brooklyn. It's always the worst shit of the day. And also out of perspective, because it's the worst shit out of millions and millions of people, right? But the big one was always Russia. And you would see the Soviet Union, and, you know, you would see their leaders, and you would see their army, and it was terrifying. They were the last great communist empire, you know, before China, right? Before China really blew up militarily. Back then, we weren't worried about China. Everybody was worried about the Soviet Union.
And you felt fear as
100%. I talked to my wife, and she's younger than me, and she felt the same thing. And some of my other friends, I asked them, they grew up in different parts of the country, and they were like, oh, yeah, everyone was scared of the fucking Russians, man. Like, there was all those movies like Red Dawn, where the Russians invade, we kick their fucking ass, send them back home. You know, that was what everybody was afraid of. And then the wall fell. And so when the wall fell and the Soviet Union collapsed, we have to realize, like, that was a monumental change in the world. People relaxed. Like, we relaxed. I was like, thank God, there's no more war anymore.
So what year is this?
What year was the collapse of the wall? What year did they blow? I want to say 89? 90?
So then the 90s comes on, and then
what year was it, Jamie? 89.
Okay, so 90s.
So the 90s come along, and no one's worried about war anymore.
Yes. Is there a cultural apathy? Because
there's a lot of bad things were made in the 90s. Some of the worst American cars that have ever existed were made during the 90s. We got real sloppy in the 90s. I look at, like, one of the things I look about with America, like how in tune America is what's their cars like? What's their cars like?
So Space Race produces some of the most beautiful cars ever.
Space Race and psychedelic drugs.
So Space Race is what?
Direct correlation.
60s?
Yes.
So you have all the cars that are coming out.
50s too.
50s, 60s.
63 was when Kennedy says we want to put the first man on the moon.
So they're using all that crazy space influence, or like spaceship influence, on the cars, and there's no restrictions, right?
Not much space influence, really.
I mean, some of these big, like, what is it, the big Cadillacs and stuff like that, they look like a fucking spaceship.
They do,
right?
Yeah, the old ones.
And there was no restrictions, right? Like, you didn't have to go, okay, it has to have this much gas mileage,
right? None of that.
You could just make whatever the fuck you wanted to make, and then okay, so that goes away, and then psychedelics are 70s.
Well, psychedelics are 60s.
Oh, yes.
And then in 1970, they passed this sweeping Schedule 1 psychedelic act that makes all those drugs Schedule 1 forbidden drugs. All the drugs that are non-toxic, like psilocybin, like things that your body makes, like dimethyltryptamine, all those things become...
That's DMT.
Yeah, all those things become Schedule 1. And then automobile design drops off a fucking cliff.
That's funny.
I mean, drops off a cliff. It's not totally... I mean, there's a correlation. It's maybe not totally the cause, because it coincides with the gas crisis. So there's a gas crisis where
now you have to consider gas mileage in a car.
Exactly.
That's interesting. That's right. So 70s is... What happens? When do we remove the gold standard from the dollar? That's
a good question.
73 or something like that?
This is good tequila, dude. This is yours?
Not bad. Yeah.
What's it called?
Los Sundays.
Dude.
It's good, right?
Tasty.
The repo is crazy.
Yeah, it's very tasty. Yeah. I was prepared for some fucking antifreeze.
No.
That's good.
They're legit. But yeah, and then we get, what is it? There's the whole like petrodollar thing that comes on after that, where they have to...
I'm not aware of all that stuff. I'm not good at that stuff.
I think this is just where we make the deal where it's like oil has to be sold in US dollars. And now we have a backing for the dollar, when for a while we didn't, right? When we removed that gold standard. Who was it? Nixon that removed the gold standard? 71. But and now we're in that situation right now where, you know, most, you know, oil is sold in US dollars, and then those countries that decide not to, if we're going to get conspiratorial, those people who have decided maybe they won't sell it, you know, in US dollars, they have difficulty staying in power.
Yeah. That's always been the game plan, right?
Yeah.
FDR did it in 33, but then also Nixon did it. I'm not sure which.
Yeah.
What does that mean then? How's it? We should have a real economist work through this.
Yeah.
We'll fuck this up.
But also, we could just talk shit, and it doesn't matter because we're not experts. So we just spit
exactly.
nonsense.
It's so funny that people get upset by that. Like, listen, this is a conversation that I would have whether or not cameras are on or not. So you just
don't
gotta
take
be
us
able
seriously.
To, you got to be able to deal with that.
That's it. Don't take anything we say seriously,
bro. Especially us.
Yeah.
We're
Well, that was
literal professional clowns.